Today, I have Ashley Mosaic here with me, and I'm really excited to dive into everything that you do because I went and looked on Instagram and everything. And I feel like there's so much and it's so interesting. Like, I was immediately captivated by all that you do, like astrology, human design, gene keys, hypnotherapy, futuristic speaker. I was like, this is fascinating. So I'm really excited to get to know you and understand, everything that you have to offer. And if you want to start with, if you're open to sharing your human design and astrology and maybe anything about that really stands out to you or like kind of like shaped who you are, how you do things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I love that all of the different aspects of what I do people find intriguing, and I feel this speaks to the movement that
Mhm.
society is experiencing. Before, all of those words would have been things that would have almost like created a sense of divide with people because there's confusion there, but now
Mm,
people are intrigued. So I
yeah.
love that. My human design, so I am a 1-4 generator. And in my natal chart, my astrology, I have a Capricorn stellium, an Aquarius moon, and I've always been fascinated by the stars. When I was little, I would just stare at the stars and I was fascinated by it. I just felt like there was like message for me in it. And because was obviously I didn't have all of the awareness that I have now, is like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to be an astronaut. So I would get all of these like planetary subscriptions. I had all the stars on my room. I had a little, I had like a planetarium in my room, but then I had all these different like planet subscriptions and all these different things. And then my telescope got stolen. And for whatever reason, I was just like, well, all right, I mean, I guess that's it. And I don't know why I thought that, but it was just like must have been just going through something when I was like in middle school, or I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just kind of, you know. And I don't remember what I got into instead of that, but I started in high school started studying like the universal laws and different religions and just this connection to all that is and really wanting to feel this like expanded awareness that there's got to be a lot more going on than what our general awareness is and what society seems to be okay with thinking. Then I trying to remember exactly. They don't know the order of it, but it was first astrology. I got really deep into astrology, and when I started learning astrology, it felt like that was the easiest thing I've ever picked up in my entire life. And there's not something I will say about a lot of things, just that it felt like for sure I have done this before. I felt like I was just really just like being activated with this information. With that, though, I felt this incredible sense of connection and this incredible sense like with myself, but then also with everything. Because while I was really diving deep into astrology, I was noticing these different transits and how they were playing out not only in my own life, but in the collective experience. And I had several realizations of thinking, okay, well, if this and this is true, then there's no way that like these certain events won't soon happen. And all of those things did soon happen. And it wasn't that it was like an exact, exactly forecasting a specific event, a specific day, although sometimes it was, but a lot of it was these larger cycles and these waves that I could see coming in for like the collective experience. But within all of that, with my own self, then I thought, okay, knowing my astrology is one thing, but what do I do with it? How do I put this into practice? I don't want this to feel like it's just I'm able to see like, oh, there's my greatness, but how do I do it? Or think, oh, okay, there's a challenge, but what do I do about it? And that's what led me then to human design and gene keys. And it was in each of those, though learning those, it was this greater sense of, oh, I get it now. I get it now. And I think that's just a huge part in everybody's journey is having this level of awareness for all of you, all of the aspects of you, but then also a deeper level of understanding and self-compassion as to the things, the experiences, the relationships, all of the different aspects of your life that really have contributed to the highs and the lows, and realizing that in some shape, way, or form, all of it is designed to prepare and equip you for where it is you are designed to go.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I think that is like the most powerful thing about these modalities is that it sort of allows you to accept yourself and like
Mhm.
stop resisting all these things that we think we're supposed to be.
Mhm.
You know, like I didn't really discover it until I was 31. That's when I discovered human design. I mean, astrology, I was like that kid that like I read all the any
Uh,
like book you or magazine you could give me. I was reading my
yeah.
horoscopes and I was like, "Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to be true." No, but like I didn't really get into astrology like deeply until I found human design. And then I was like, hold on a second. I'm more than just a Taurus sun. It blew my mind. And then I quickly like that just like opened this whole other like field to me. Like sort of like you said, like I feel like that called to me in such a different and unique way that I was able to like see just I guess differently through that lens. But yeah, I think it's so beautiful and just like allowing us to sort of like accept all of these pieces of ourselves and you did share your birth time with me. So I did
Mhm.
take a peek before and
Mhm.
I looked at your Instagram and I was like, she's got to have Aquarius in there somewhere. And then I saw Aquarius moon and I was like, makes so much sense. Even like the words, right? Which I think is so beautiful about,
Mhm.
human design and astrology. We can speak to people and you just pick out these little words that they use. And
Mhm.
you're like, huh. And then literally most of the time, like it's true.
Mhm.
It rings true. So how do you kind of like marry all of these like tools specifically with this like futuristic like speaking and ideas because it's
Mhm.
so fascinating, right? And I think so many of us are just like looking at the past and what we did wrong or like being stuck and it's just a really interesting I guess perspective.
I believe that all of us are here to do a thing in a specific way, and when we do that thing in a specific way, it helps everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for us to do those things and in that specific way, we have to learn, we have to grow, we have to be equipped, we have to be prepared, we have to be activated and optimized. Somebody can come into this, we can say maybe somebody wants to come into this reality and they may think, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do this thing. How how are you going to remember what you came here to do if it's not met with, you're always met with these, what feels like opposition, battles, these experiences that force you to develop the strengths that you need to do the things you came here to do. So I believe that when we are looking at these charts, so you're looking at astrology or any of these other systems, they all grant us access to patterns and cycles that are occurring otherwise unconsciously. So they're happening either way. But when we align with it, this is like the greatest life hack ever. And they're happening in our own lives individually, but then also in the collective. So we can see how we can really, like, really almost just, I have this visual when I'm working with my clients, when I'm marrying these different systems, like you said, the human design, the Jinkies, and astrology. It's like I see this matrix when I'm looking at this at the different charts. So if you view the natal chart as gonna be two-dimensional, and then you're three-dimensional, and you're four-dimensional, and before you know it, you have this entire matrix of somebody's energetics. And these can seem very esoteric, but I think there's actually an incredible amount of practicality to it, especially when you look to the reasons why you would want to lean into these systems. We have to always be grounded. We can't just go further out and out and out and out without grounding because that's where people get things like spiritual psychosis. And that's also where you realize you can't do. You can't create impact if you are just a brain. If you are just a computer in a head. You have to have the energetics. And that's another really big part of my story is being forced to realize that over and over and over and over and over again is I can have the foresight, I can have what feels like being borderline psychic and really having this incredible ability to see how all the dots connect. But if I am not in my body, I never line up with the greatness that I have forecasted. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really important for people to be incredibly grounded, like be grounded, be in your body. And otherwise, these systems, they don't seem as they lack a sense of practicality. And then it just seems like it's just an interesting little thing to explore, or worse yet, it can seem just like a party trick
Mm-hmm.
when
Yeah.
reality is so useful, so practical.
Yeah, I agree so much. It's so important to like come into here. I'm a Taurus sun, so I feel like just that, like in
Yeah.
itself, I feel like
Uh,
that my body and my grounding and things like that is so important. And that was when I first learned it too. I was like, you have to have that piece too. I think so many of us, we do get taken away with, yeah, the ideas, and we're very much like in our head, but also that spiritual part, right? And it's like, what they say, we're spiritual beings having human experience, and with that human experience requires the body, and so to like ignore it. So when you're looking at like somebody comes to you and you're looking at their chart, you're seeing these patterns throughout like the chart or their life, or you're like looking at like historical like cycles of like when these planets, is that kind of how it is, or
All of it.
specific to them?
All
Okay.
of the above, all
Yeah.
of it. It's recognizing so how these different systems are interconnected, and then how they are interconnected within their own life, and then how those in their own life is then interconnected with everything that's happening. So something right off the bat is just, yeah, looking at just the basics of the chart, and within even the charts from the human design, the gene keys, and the astrology or natal chart, you can see these things that are saying the same things, even if they're actually not pointing to the same thing. You can just, and that's something that's really interesting to recognize, that even if you didn't have, say it's like three different aspects we're looking at, even if you didn't have this one, but you just had these two, that would be a lot. But then you have this one here, and they're all saying the same thing, but they could even be dealing with different planets. They could be dealing with different activations, but they're all essentially saying the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
once somebody hears that, it's as if their subconscious mind is activated, and they receive information that they essentially have been trying to get through to themselves this whole time. And whether it is simply having a level of permission or acceptance, or it's the motivation, it's the inspiration that that person needs in that moment, but it's also recognizing where you have thought this before, you have experienced this before, where you are just spiraling upwards, experiencing the same thing again. And this is where you can just see even somebody's right out. Another thing is really simple to look at is when you just look to, okay, if what was going on 19 years ago, maybe you were in a very different phase in your life, but more than likely there was a similar kind of kickoff energy that was happening. I've had clients where it actually seems so literal, like they will move again to the same place. So it's like, okay, there's obviously this unconscious pattern that is playing out. So how can you bring awareness to it and make sure that now you are using this intentionally? Because a part of us is connected to all that is in ways that our conscious, logical, cognitive mind can't quite pick up. So when we look to our charts, better understanding of ourselves, better understanding of our cycles, and then also how do we lean into our uniqueness, our idiosyncrasies to align with these larger collective cycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's, on the one hand, there's a part of me that even as I say all of that, I'm like, I sound like a crazy person saying this, but I've seen it hundreds of times. There's just something that is so as is with it. And I am always open to, so when it comes to what astrology is, I don't know. I do not know exactly what it is. So I love to like still have that level of exploration of like getting new data so I can generate a better understanding. But whether it is truly something within our energetics, or it simply is a system that is timed up with these other cycles and patterns that are playing out, it grants us access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm amazed. I'm amazed
Yeah.
every day with it.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard to deny when you look back just through
Mhm.
historical patterns and cycles and how it aligns, you know, and we've been using this system since before we had any sort of technology. Like this was the technology, right?
Mhm.
Like hundreds of thousands of years ago. So it's so fascinating to me that I love, you know, when there's like a new cycle happening, but you can look back, you know, and we're seeing these things repeating. You know, it's really, really incredible. As far as like people's like specific charts right now, is there anything that you are looking at just to see like patterns of like what they can like, maybe I don't know if expect is the right word, but understand about themselves?
Big component right now, when we just right off the bat, it's like so many like things that came to me
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. A huge one is recognizing what were the large areas of what felt like psychological death and rebirths from these last 16 years of having Pluto in Pluto in Capricorn. what area of your life, what areas of your life, what experiences really brought you face to face with where your power is inverted, where you are not sovereign, you are not this extreme powerful force for your own good in your own life. And that right there is something that seems to be shining an incredible amount of light on people in their lives. Just recognizing as well of where your power wasn't inverted, was essentially inverted. But more important than that, though, is what responsibility can you take for it all? If we do not take responsibility for things that happen to us, even if it's something that actually like wasn't your fault in a logical sense, the sooner you're able to like essentially eat more responsibility, the sooner you are the person who is better because of it, the person who is no longer the person who those types of things happened to. And that right there is something really big that I've just been working with my clients on my individual clients and also when I hold workshops is that's a huge thing right there. And then building onto that is knowing where in your chart then Pluto is now. So where are you designed to take all that you learned to improve yourself to now truly expand that energy. So that's a huge one right there. But then it's we have every single planet changing signs this year. There's just an incredible amount of change. And something else is I ask people, what advice would you give to yourself in 2020 right now?
Mm,
Whatever that advice is, guarantee you will be better if you optimize and you optimize yourself and you embody that advice right now
mm,
because it's going to be incredibly relative and it's yeah, I always just ask people just what advice would you give to the 2020 version of you? And now how
yeah,
can we take that advice now and run with it?
yeah.
That was a period of an incredible amount of change and surprise. Without a doubt, we are in another period just like that.
Hmm.
And that is a way to really be prepared. I like to tell people, as long as you just stay ready, you never got to get ready.
Hmm. Yeah. That gave me like full body chills because I mean, for me personally, 2020, I mean, that was a huge year for everyone. I lost my job due to COVID because we completely shut down. But even thinking like this year for me, so Uranus has been over my sun in Taurus, like directly on it. And what, 2 weeks ago, I quit my 9 to 5. I was like, I can't be like suffocated like this anymore. So I feel like I'm just like burning everything to the ground. And it's sort of that same energy. And I was thinking of like what I would have said to myself at that time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so powerful. So I hope everybody like goes back and listens to that and really journals on that because that's such a powerful question and a great place to start, I think, for the energy of right now.
What advice would you give to yourself in 2020?
To go all in
It's all
because
in.
I was like, I had just started this, my coaching business and the podcast. And so I kind of like was still afraid of going in, and I was like, I lost my job. So I figured I would give it some time, but then I got distracted by all the noise, you
Mhm.
know? So when I
Mhm.
look back, like that's what I would have done. I would have
Mhm.
gone harder into this. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I think there's the fact that you didn't then and now that you are, there's a
Hmm.
lot that you've learned from then to now, right?
Yeah.
So it's also in this understanding that because it's easy for a lot of people, even when I give them that little exercise of to immediately kind of think I would have done this and then I should have done that, and now they're like, oh, I'm out by it. I would. It's like no, 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 no.
Hmm.
You weren't ready then, right? There was
Yeah.
some component that you knew was either not activated, the alignment wasn't there. But the fact that you can now see that so clearly speaks to the just that now is the right time.
Hmm.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I
can
think,
learn off of, be so incredibly guided by
yeah.
in your life.
Yeah, there was so much work that had to be done. What do you
Mhm.
feel like would have been your advice to yourself?
And that was an interesting year for me. So the Saturn Pluto South Node conjunction that happened directly on my sun.
Mm.
So that was a very impactful,
Yeah.
whether it was purely the energy or it was uh, an alignment of cycles that certainly was incredibly significant for me in my life. It created this catalyst in my life, bringing to awareness every subconscious limitation, block, belief that I had. And prior to even to it was in 2018, I was telling people, whoa, I was looking at the astrology, something insane is going to happen in 2020. It's going to change the world forever. I said all these different things. And so then when this was playing out, I wasn't really worried about things because I had this sense of there's just this cyclical component to this, that everything is happening exactly as it is supposed to happen. And a lot of different things happened in my own life at that time. So my advice to myself back then would have been just because other people don't see what it is that you can see doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Mm.
And I see now that my entire life has been guiding me to, say, develop like thicker skin, right? Thicker skin and a an ability to dance through the storms a little bit more rather than wearing battles like they require this huge level of endurance to recognize that it's simply part of the dance and to continue to speak your truth. And yeah, it was a
Yeah.
very interesting time in the world, right?
Mm.
For everyone. But the fact that I had the Pluto Saturn South Node conjunction, like that
Yeah.
happened directly on my sun. It's like it was this really bizarro time for,
Yeah.
yeah, for everyone. But yeah, my advice would always be around the idea of just because people don't see what you see doesn't mean that you're wrong. In fact, it's actually
Mm.
guiding you to your purpose
Yeah.
and to stand on business, but with an open heart.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's always a unique challenge when you see something not everybody sees to be able to
Mhm.
stand in that and to move forward with that because so many of like the most innovative like products out there, somebody once said that person was crazy,
Yeah.
And so there was, I think it's really takes a lot of work and inner work and trial and error really and all that to stand in your truth and like move forward with that. So I think that's so
Mhm.
powerful and such a beautiful lesson and learning to be able to just
Mhm.
like stand firm in that because I with all the human design and astrology knowledge and information, I think that is the most challenging thing, right? Is to see it and be like, this is just who I am and I'm going to embody it. I
Yeah,
think that's
and if
where a
you
lot of us.
exactly, and as well as we have a tendency to dismiss or diminish the things that come easily to us. And when we do
Mm.
that, we fail to recognize that those are actually our gifts. The things that come easily
Yes.
to us are our gifts. We have a tendency to place more weight on the things that we tried, worked so hard to be good at this very thing. It's because there's like so much, there was more maybe effort put into that. But it's the sense of ease guides us to the things that are innate within us, our innate strengths. So when
Mm-hmm.
you have an innate strength that is different than somebody else's and good, because we don't need to all have the same strengths, it's can be very difficult to not realize like, oh, wait, other people aren't seeing what it is that you see and or they can't do what you can do. It's also just us breaking out of this homogenized tribal energy,
Mm-hmm.
one that is empowering the individuals. But it's this, second half of the 2020s is where we're really seeing a lot of activation and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
this breaking out of the molds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
And
think continue.
but
Sorry, I interrupted.
I was gonna say this, we're just seeing, I think, as well, but within this journey, as people are recognizing where it was actually themselves that was creating the block.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge component with having Pluto and Capricorn the last 16 years was recognizing where your power is inverted, but where are you still allowing for yourself to be confined by these outdated beliefs.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that is so powerful. Just the conversation around how we're always, I feel like, looking to somebody else's gifts, right? That's something that I've been really reflecting on recently, too. Exactly what you said, where it's like, I feel like the things that we're good at, because they're easy, we don't see them as being gifts and we
Mhm.
overlook them and we look to the next person and be like, oh my gosh, they're an amazing, I don't know, speaker or whatever it is. And then we're spending so much of our energy chasing something that's not innate within us. Like, sure, we can grow skills. Like it's not to say like shy away from things that are hard, but I think that we're not looking back in my personal experience, the most recent like 9 to 5 that I had was I spent a majority of my time forcing things that didn't come natural to me. And so I don't know if it was Uranus in my 10th house, and my son was just like, let's not do this anymore. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I refuse to be in a situation where I cannot shine because I'm spending so much time trying to embody something that I'm not. And so I was like, it was so uncomfortable. And I'm sure that that's that Pluto, right? Like
Mhm.
that Pluto energy is just always like, it's so slow, but it's like showing us through that discomfort, the things
Mhm.
that don't really work anymore. But yeah, that's just been a huge, massive like realization for me recently is like, let's just move more towards what we are good at. Because when I feel like cultivate those skills, it's like you can really do what you're designed to do.
Mhm. And then it's recognizing that just as you have these innate skills and gifts, so do other people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's this really new way of viewing everyone else, right? When we think about a gift, right? Gifts aren't just for ourselves, gifts are designed to be shared.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, everybody has these different innate gifts and skills within themselves. And this really allows us to, as a collective, have this higher level of consciousness when we begin viewing everyone in that way, recognizing that people's differences are not something for us to be threatened by, but rather everybody's differences actually how we are designed to connect.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we can think, yes, absolutely, if we truly all think about that, we all have these like, little like little mind blow moments of where you're like, oh, I guess, yeah, I can see, or maybe I don't always think that way, or I do kind of, because we've been conditioned. We've all been conditioned by this like machine that we've all been living in, and it's also when recognizing when we all are having these, these multiple levels of awareness and awakenings, how we've been conditioned, but then that's designed to activate this new inquiry into, okay, well, where else are you still like abiding by some type of restriction or rule or program that isn't actually aligned with what you know to be the truth?
Mm-hmm. And how do you see like the astrology, let's just say like of this year, that's really gonna like support us in getting out of that and kind of like accepting ourselves more in that respect?
There's an incredible amount of change, ma massive amount of change, and therefore people's ability to navigate uncertainty, change is essential, but it's also in recognizing that when things can change really quickly, what do you have to do to align yourself with that so that the change is something that is incredibly favorable, right? And it's also allowing for yourself to dream. Allow for yourself to move out of that what is, what has been, and reconnect with some of that dream, some of that vision. A lot of people, they feel like a little bit like maybe their spirit has been kind of busted, or they've had to, have these certain realizations and all of these things that without the proper perspective can make it feel like, well, you just got to go and make whatever you got, make that work, right? Like dream a little smaller. And it's like, oh, that's like that soul crushing thing right there. So allow for yourself, one is to allow for yourself to dream. Allow for yourself to reconnect with something that actually feels exciting, right? And now, how are you going to move in that direction? And this is where you get clear on these idiosyncrasies of yours that are actually your strengths. This might be even asking yourself a few questions, such as, what are the things about you that other people would recognize to be like your quirks, right? Right off the bat. What are the things that other like what pieces of advice do people come to you for, right? Those things right there, they point you to these things that whether or not you see them in yourself, other people see them in you. Then it's how can you lean into those and how can you grant yourself permission to embody those? Use those to align with that vision, that dream that you have, and recognize that even if you doubt it in the moment, do whatever you got to do to allow for yourself to hold on to a piece of the belief that it is happening for you. That if something has to fall apart, it does. It has to. It has to leave because you're not letting it otherwise, right? It
Mm.
requires some kind of a tower moment for that to happen. And we're going to see, I think, a lot of those, a lot of tower moments. So it's make that work, make that work in your favor. And there's an incredible amount of change. And we're just even looking to things like, from the financial world to now the AI infrastructure to all of these different aspects. There are so many things happening now that just a few years ago would have seemed like the absolute most craziest that can never happen. So therefore, life really only makes sense in reverse. It only makes sense in reverse, but we have to keep going forward. So it's also suspending a little bit of judgment. Every day, suspend a little, like suspend some judgment to recognize that if you have this feeling, you have this vision, this way in which you feel like you're supposed to be doing these certain things, but the pieces just aren't in alignment yet. You have to recognize that that is where when people say things, right, it's like the how is not yours to figure out. And it's because there's so much happening so quickly right now that it might be like the very like path that you will take is currently being formed right now. But it's take the step, the path will appear.
Mm-hmm. And how do we ground in, like with all of this chaos and change?
Mhm. Is make sure that every day you are doing something to connect with your body. There's a lot of different reasons why people live in their head, right? It can be things like trauma. It can be just from they feel so uncomfortable. There are so many different reasons that people do. And rather than feeling like you always need to figure out the why you do this or the why that, if that is helpful, you can do that. But for some people, it's just realizing that you have to just create new habits. You have to create a new baseline for yourself. And if you are used to living in your head, it's what can you do throughout the day, really, is just ground yourself into your body. I like to do just some simple little check-ins. Is just even something wherever you are sitting, it's like do reference points around you. Like, okay, there's a wall about like 12 feet ahead of me, over there's a couch. Do these little reference points as it puts you back into this like 0 point energy in your body of like, okay, yes, you may be this brilliant computer brain, but it is inside of this magnificent body. And there's an incredible amount of awareness that you have when you are in your body. And also, it's where your power is. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're in your head, it's so often because you are trying to anticipate the future, or even unconsciously, you're trying to fix something that happened in the past. And although, even though your conscious mind knows that you can't do that, your unconscious mind has no concept of the time that it is. So that needs to be also anchored into this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do small little reference check-in points. You can even just like tap on your body. Like when I feel myself getting a little anxious, I will just like tap on my body and it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, yeah, you're back in your body. And that has been something that is such a simple little like tweak, and it has had a massive return for me.
I love that. Yeah, I think in the last like 2 months I've really incorporated just like like tapping. And in the
Hmm.
morning, I'll journal and I'll do like a quick
Hmm.
5 minute tapping. And I think it just like roots you down
Hmm.
into like, and obviously, sets the stage for the rest of your day. It's really powerful. I like that one.
And I've done a lot of different things of where it's like dealing with the chakras. But I've recognized that even with myself, and is that I have a tendency to still think I'm doing that work, but I'm still only doing it like through the
Mm,
head, right? So
hmm.
it's like you have to be very like literal with some of these things. Like you can't just go and read a book about grounding. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, great, you know a lot, but are you doing it? Are you actually putting it into practice? You can, use these different like you can, light a candle that is for the root chakra, but it's like that has no what it is not actually doing is not doing anything in that sense. It may be doing something on an intellectual level, and I do believe that the mind controls the body, but sometimes you got to remind the body of that. You got
Yeah.
to remind the body of that.
Yeah. The mind can be tricky. Can be
Yes.
really tricky.
And the more I study, really deep into, different types of technology, and the more that I study, AI and these different agents and all these different aspects that are coming out and like super, super like rapidly accelerating technology, the more wow, all this technology really is inspired by and a reflection of our innate human technology, but without our ability to utilize that technology from the space of our body who was here to do things, you just live in the head, and it's like the psychosis truly, truly is something that a lot of people deal with. And I don't think a lot of people really talk about it because I think a lot of times people either they're like in this high of connecting all these dots in the universe, and if they're in it, they don't want to hear about it. Then they have some kind of like a crash. And then it's just these cycles play out. And the more that someone's able just to have an awareness of where they are at in time and space in their body, it's a game changer.
Can you go a little deeper into that concept that you just spoke to about just like studying AI and how it's actually really these tools that like I'm trying to like please place that
Yeah.
together in my
Uh-huh.
mind of how that
Yeah.
how that shows up.
So something I always say is as human consciousness expands, technology accelerates in tandem.
Hmm.
I believe that so much of this technology, it's not actually new. Rather, it is new to us, but it is only with our expanded levels of awareness do we even have the ability to recognize this technology. So it's as we become more aware, we have new goals and we need new tools to help us do those very things. But we need to be able to spot this out there so that we can use that as a reflection point of ourselves. And I just think it's fascinating. We're seeing things like so recently there was the Stargate initiative. There's this like 500 billion plus minimum investment going into advancing the AI infrastructure in the United States. And the Stargate project is a really interesting name for this project to be because the Stargate project was this top secret government initiative from 1978 to 1995 that was all around studying psychic phenomena and astral projection, all of these different things. So now, like a couple decades later, this same name is revived and reused in a different way, but I can't help but wonder if all of the ways in which actually there's such a level of intentionality to that. And I know that could just be one example where somebody might think that's entirely a psyop of having that being named that. But to me, it was this little nod from the universe of like, exactly, that we now have this technology that is becoming so powerful, but yet it is named the very same project that was all around exploring the potential for human consciousness to expand time and space. So
Yeah.
it's this connection point of our innate technology being reflected and activated and enhanced then by this technology that is outside, right? It's
Mm.
it's it's an outer technology, but the connection with our inner technology is undeniable to me. And that's
Yeah.
something that more people are going to realize. And this is where I always like advise my clients. And every time that you learn like a new piece of technology, a new tool, it's reflect on how. this is mirroring like something within yourself, and also how it's designed to bring you back to yourself, right? So even as off top of mind, whether somebody is just they're using ChatGPT to help them organize their thoughts. It's like, okay, so it's just literally you are just using this as this sounding board. It is this sounding board that is helping you make sense of your really brilliant big ideas. And there's so many people they'll use ChatGPT in just a simple way of that, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And it's like, it's all the things that you were saying. You just needed to have something outside of yourself help you arrange them in a way that equips you to now move forward with them. But when we're then looking to it's like super intelligence and quantum computing, that is without a doubt this reflection of our ability to pull essentially information out of this hive mind and our ability to access information at rapid speeds. Well, through the technology, but also through ourselves. But we have to drop a little bit of some of this judgment that we have around how we are getting this information and what to what to allow ourselves to lean into deeper.
Mhm. That's fascinating. I know even like over the last few years, I've seen like declassified articles here and there from the CIA, and like I don't watch the news, so I don't know if it's like widespread or because I just see it like here and there. But I'm like, why are we not talking more about like those experiments that have been done or things where they talk about astral projection or like there's so much within these like files that they've experimented with and have proven to be accurate, and we're still like as a society I feel like denying those things.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's so fascinating too with the chat gpt, like just like the way that it gets to know you and like viewing it as like a mirroring tool as opposed to something that's taking the power from you. um it seems like you're more on the side of like allowing these tools to like to benefit us and further us versus because I think there's a whole group of people that are like this destroying the world. And I mean I know even like the way my parents talk about my daughter and the phone and technology, and I'm like but there's also so much beautiful things with this technology.
Mhm.
Even look at social media, people speak very badly of social media and it's destroying society. And but I'm like, I've had the most incredible connections online. Like when I go on my feed, I see inspiration, I see expansion, I see human design, astrology, like I see all of these things. I rarely see the really negative stuff, maybe because I just scroll past it and algorithms like, she doesn't like it. But
Mhm.
it's mirroring our internal, right? Like even if it is an
Absolutely.
algorithm.
Absolutely. It also requires intentionality. It requires intentionality. The thing about this technology rapidly accelerating is if we have, well, with conscious awareness, with intentionality, this technology can liberate humanity in so many ways. So many ways, ways that we don't even realize that we are like essentially like trapped by. It can liberate us in so many ways. But if we are using this technology to replace like our humanness, the aspects of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves that are this like innate, brilliant human, that's when we're gonna this like dystopian path is absolutely something that could happen. So whenever you are using this technology or even co-collaborating with this technology, is utilize it in ways that enhances your humanness, right? So if somebody loves writing, don't have it write a book for you, right?
Yeah.
Have it flesh out some of your ideas. And it's co-collaborate with this technology just in ways that enhances you and enhances humanity. But what's happened is a lot of us, we have been conditioned to think that our worth comes from our productivity, and even being idle in this space of like stillness can be very uncomfortable for people. So rather than allow for this like blank canvas, you little moment in your life where you don't know what to actually hook your brain into, we have a tendency to hook our brain into like, go and solve this thing. Da, 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 da. So now we're like, so we are trying to essentially we have been operating like machines.
Mm.
We have been operating like machines. So if somebody is operating like a machine and now they are threatened by this technology operating like a better machine, And yes, that is going to be problematic, but we have to recognize that we are so much more than just a machine. And that right there is the very thing why technology, it demands for us to embrace our humanness. Otherwise, we will be outmachined by the machines, like without a doubt. Like they're like I almost say like it's funny to me because without a doubt, like any like it's also if you think about somebody's doing a job that they don't really like doing, without a doubt, like a machine will do it better than you because you don't even have the passion, your heart's not in it. And because of those two things alone, it's amplifying and increasing the likelihood of human error of all of these different things because you're not actually, you don't feel connected to it. But a lot of people don't know what they feel connected to.
Mm.
And there's a lot of shame and a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with that, of not knowing what makes you not a machine. And people are
Mhm.
like people get really tense around that. Like, so like, why are you here? Like, what do you think your soul came here to do? And if people don't know, they get really uncomfortable. And when we get really uncomfortable, we look for distractions. And so often we look for distractions in these things that are connected to tasks that this technology can absolutely do better, faster, far more efficiently.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but somebody was talking about creativity. And if you were having problems being creative or you couldn't think of anything, pause and like meditate, right? And I think that it is that not distracting yourself and outsourcing to everything else. The fact of just, or the act of just coming and sitting in silence for even 2 minutes just kind
Mhm.
of clears some of that away. Like I
Mhm.
sometimes watch my kids and my son is 8, but he'll like be playing PS4. And then when there's a pause in the game, he turns on his iPad. And I'm like, hold on a second. Because it's constant distraction,
Uh-huh.
right? There's no just like sitting or like being creative. So, we go through phases where I completely take everything away. And
Mhm.
the amount of stuff that they will do and create and design and, act out or whatever, it's like you just that like remembering that we have that ability within us,
Mhm.
right? Outside of all that. So I think that's so important to sort of like remember that and come
Mhm.
back to that, whatever modality you use, right? To just kind of
Mhm.
like come back and be like, I hold this power. And I think that reframe, right, of just like AI is actually mirroring what we already have inside. I actually haven't heard it said that way. And I think that's incredible because that's so empowering because it would be easy to look at all of this and feel so disempowered.
Mhm.
But to know that this is just
Yeah.
like,
If we didn't have the awareness that was ready for it, it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't
mm,
be here. We see this, in the technology, but then even in these larger changing infrastructures and ecosystems. Like I've been really involved in blockchain technology for many, many years. And one of the things that got me involved in it was seeing the astrology play out, but it was also in recognizing the need for greater levels of transparency that will allow for what we can consider to be like fairness in ways that will allow for society to like blossom and bloom, but really it's to allow for humans to have greater levels of consciousness and greater levels of awareness. So we
mhm.
can see that is happening just in these individual technologies, but in the way in which everything is holistic and everything is connected. Everything is plays this really integral and beautiful part in the whole. If you can hear my dog snoring, he's snoring very loudly just
I
right
love
off
it.
camera. So I'm like, yeah.
No, my kids started acting up before, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope the mic isn't picking it up. But life. Is there like an area? So I have like a couple questions, and I'll try and do one at a time because they're kind of like jumbled in. But so first of all, if we're looking at astrology, human design, we're seeing the patterns and things like that, and the way that things are happening now, where there are things happening that have not happened in our lifetimes before, or like ever, right? How are we like? How do you utilize that information, or like I don't know, predict or just like see those patterns in things that haven't necessarily because I feel like like so many times over the last like few years, there's always something that this never happened before, right? There's these massive, energetic, like huge things happening. So
I
yeah.
think that's going to continue to happen.
Mhm.
And I always wonder, but I imagine it must be that within every time in history, people thought that they were living in the most
Yeah.
interesting time, right? So maybe
Mhm.
always live in a time that we think is
Yeah.
interesting. Or I guess if you want that, I feel like that's all that I would do. I want the interesting because I find
Yeah.
inspiration and hope and interesting and innovation and all of this, and I find expansion in that
Mm.
and exploring the unknown. But if we are constantly living in through these times of never before, it's recognizing then that, wow, if you are constantly experiencing these never before things, whether it's related to the world or related to astrology, it's wow, you really came here to do a thing, right? You didn't just come here to just kind of like la 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 and just like bide your time. And you came here to obviously go through experiences that were designed to be these catalytic moments in your life. And knowing that you are intricately connected with the whole, your own awakening, your own hardships, your own breakdowns, your own wins, all of that is playing a really important role, not just to in your life and for your family and for the evolution of your soul, but for the evolution of consciousness. And I think just right there, just having that level of awareness is something that really allows for people to at least have a new perspective around their challenges and how they are connected to the whole, and to constantly be living through never before, never
Mhm.
before times. Like, wow, like you must really be here to do a thing and you must be really special, right?
Yeah.
And honoring that within yourself, it grants people this new level of permission to also think, okay, well, if that was true, what would I be doing differently?
Mhm.
What do I know I would not be doing? Oh, okay. And then it's like, yeah, this awareness, but awareness without action can sometimes create more problems, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
that's talking about that psychosis again, because you're like, "Ugh," right up in the head, because you're like, ah, I know all this stuff and I can't unknow it, but I can't do anything about it. So this is just hell. And it's like, yes, that is like a hell. So what are you gonna do about it? So I see why, I say there's that joke that I'll be like, I get why not everybody wants to awaken, or I get why, self-awareness, not for everyone.
Mhm.
It is for everyone. And there's
Yeah.
multiple levels of it. And no matter where you are
Mhm.
in your life, even if somebody thinks that they are the most self-aware person, guaranteed there are still a million blind spots that they have.
Yeah.
But by constantly pulling the mirror out on yourself and being like, okay, if this were to be true, what would I be doing differently? If this were to be true, how is this experience right now designed to guide me, to teach me, so that I can grow, so that I can become better, right? And it's when you live your life that way, you begin to tap more into the moments versus like the minutes.
Mhm.
And there's even the idea that there's two different types of time. There's Chronos time and then Kairos time. So they're both based on Greek mythology. Chronos time is chronological time, and in Greek mythology, it's Chronos, the god of time, is one of the youngest gods, but he looks the oldest. And the myth behind him is that he was so fearful of like one of his children, even like taking over his whole kingdom, that if he had a baby, he would eat it. So it was like time devouring itself. But
Mhm.
then Kairos time. Kairos was a god who was one of the oldest, but he looked the youngest. He was like super super chill dude. He had this like was bald, but he had a long ponytail. And the thought there was that you, when like a moment passes you, you have to grab the moment. But whereas Chronos time happens minute to moment is Kairos time. So it's living in the moment. When we think of these like divine magical moments, these like quantum leaps in our life, it's multiple things lined up in such a way to create the perfect moment. So somebody can go through an experience that seems absolutely devastating. And if you're in the devastation and you're already going through something else, it can be more likely that you may not align with that moment because this thing happened. You need to have that thing happen in this time, in this cycle, and you need to have this level of awareness for you to see, oh my gosh, this is a thing that's going to get me to move in a new direction, the thing that's going to get me to actually awaken to the truth of who I am. Or without that awareness, that thing might be the thing that is going to have you go around the block again because something you needed to learn. So if
Mhm.
we look at our life just in that way of sometimes it is slowing down, turning inwards, allowing for all of the events around you to kind of slow down for you to have a new level of awareness. And I think that probably is like the process right there of
Mm,
awakening. But when you also take that even one level a little bit deeper, you also have the awareness around this way that you're feeling, or this that's being activated in you. If this is something that's like seems like a negative experience, like is this the first time this has ever happened? Is this actually just this like, because usually it's not, right? It's connected to something else. So it's what in your life is getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder for you to actually listen and
mm,
do something about.
mhm.
And that's when you align with those moments
Yeah.
when you allow for yourself to have a new perspective on something that's happening. And even talking about the idea that life only makes sense in reverse. If you look at past experiences as data, that then helps you be even more confident in certain convictions that you may have, especially pertaining to your truth, what you're here to do, your innate skills, and then how to use those to help others.
Mhm. I love that. I have two more questions. So, because this is the Emotional Mastery podcast, I always ask about emotions.
Mhm,
And so, for you, having an Aquarius moon and then you have an undefined solar plexus, correct?
mhm, mhm.
So, how have emotions played a part in your experience and your journey? And like maybe how has your relationship changed with them?
So I want to say like right off the bat, it would be like not a fan, don't like them. Don't like them. Not a fan. Um, I say that jokingly, but also a lot of truth, an
Yeah.
incredible amount of truth in there. So in human design, I have my moon in gate 13 in line one. So that in human design, that is the gate of, you can call it the listener, or the gate of secrets, fellowship of man. It's thought to be where all of the secrets are stored of the collective. And it's not connected, because I have an undefined throat. So it's not connected to 33. So that alone that signifies somebody that I don't feel a pressure to like share people's secrets. I take in a lot of um people's awareness stories, and I feel I have this certain level of immediate so like understanding. And I've always been really great at putting myself in somebody else's shoes. That is something that I'm more energetically, let's say like predisposed or conditioned to be like quote unquote good at. But then also my growing up experience made that like a hyper vigilant thing in my life. So when a lot of people talk about like the empath energy isn't it's I will say now, I'll go on a limb and say it's rarely an empowering thing. Like it is great to be able to have a sense of being able to connect with other people and but until you have an incredible level of awareness and truly skill with that, it can feel so overwhelming that you just want those feelings to go away. You'll do anything just to have that feeling go away. And I feel like that was a big part of my life. So when I saw that in my human design, I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Like seeing that. It was a
Yeah.
huge moon there. And then also having the undefined solar plexus. So additionally, in my undefined solar plexus, I have I have gate 6 and 49, both like the hanging gates. And so gate and 6, which is gate of friction, I that's where I have my designed moon. So in Gene Keys, that is thought this is like this wound, this like energy that you came to move through. So for me, it was also I have a little like misunderstanding within my energetic body that I thought of emotions as being conflict. So it was like, ooh, like everything was like, oh, I'm feeling away, oh, it's gonna be bad. I'm feeling away, it's gonna be bad. I'm feeling away, I'm feeling for you, I'm feeling for you, I'm feeling for you. Feelings and emotions were never something that was this beautiful thing. It was just like if I could just turn it off, I feel like I would have wanted to, was I felt the weight of everything all the time. And I had to, was forced to realize the implications of that so many times in my life. And it's not just in the weight of it, but it's also in making decisions or feeling like I didn't have a decision because the weight of that was just this, I would feel like I was consumed constantly by everything. It was like I would talk about wanting to be this like sovereign individual. It was not. It was not. I was so consumed by things around me. And that was where I had to reach a breaking point and be like, there's no way I came to reality just to like be like imprisoned by emotions. And I also realized that through enough experiences, I realized, oh, I will intellectualize everything. I will intellectualize this thing happening. I will have it all make sense in my head and a neatly wrapped little bow. My body was still like, right? There was absolutely zero understanding from my body. And that was where I realized, oh my gosh, like the mind, body, emotional connection is so annoying that I was like, ugh, I didn't want that to be the work that I had to do. Didn't want it at all. Did not want it at all. This is the stupidest work. I hate it. Like, this sucks. Unsign me up for this. I want to go back. I want to go back in my spaceship. And I realized until I began to do that work, I could not have anything. I couldn't like be anything. I couldn't do anything. I have a lot of stories around that I'm working on really putting into like this framework because for me it was I always had the foresight. I could see how things were going to come together, but until I got my body on board and had my nervous system be calibrated in such a way to handle disappointing somebody else, to handle being around somebody else who was maybe going through a thing and realizing it's not my thing to fix. I also I but didn't have wasn't calibrated for to maintain anything like joy. I wasn't calibrated to have any level of wealth. I was like I was just calibrated to like have a foresight, have an idea, have a thing happen for me to bounce and then come back and do it again. But each of those times it was like a new hero's journey. And I had all these different thoughts about what I was going to do in life.
Mm.
And none of them began to even start to happen until I learned how to truly be a human,
Yeah.
which is was difficult for me. It is.
Mhm.
I say that with like it is difficult, and it's I yeah like I could see a lot of people feeling similarly, but then having a lot of shame around that. But
Yeah.
I think without a doubt, being a human, hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. It for sure is. Do you have Pluto square your moon?
I have it close.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it close. And this is a lot of yeah, but I have Pluto conjunct my South Node.
Mm.
Kind of it could be kind of a doozy. But what I recognize though is it's that power inverted for me. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people can relate to that in ways that we can all be either like our own worst enemy or like our greatest gift, right? And it's just it's a perspective shift. It's a perspective shift. And when somebody's on a journey of reclaiming their power, or even just like, and I'll say reclaiming because we all came in as these empowered beings, but it's just in simply realizing where are you allowing for life to push you around. And a lot of people have this like go with the flow attitude. And I just tell people you can only go with the flow if you're as long as you're the one creating the current.
Mm.
Otherwise, you're programmed. There's a lot of conditioning, there's a lot of patterns that you have involuntarily like subscribed to, are aligned by, or are following.
Yeah.
And if you are very disconnected from your body, it can it's impossible. I'll just say it's impossible. It's impossible to actually know what is right for you. And people talk about this idea that what is it? Say even like the law of one, like the different levels of consciousness. And the first level of consciousness is where it's like the rocks being asleep, like the earth is being asleep. But when it expands upon that idea, it's that everything begins at this first level where we have this level of awareness. And from this level of awareness, we have these needs and these desires, and they're designed to actually allow for us to have this level of self-actualization and awareness by being, oh, I am separate from all that is. So I think about myself in that way as I was learning all of these esoteric traits and skills and all these modalities and skills, and I was having the awareness of these things within myself, but it didn't really matter. until I had to go like backwards, it felt like in a lot of my development to actually be like, oh, how do I be a separate person?
Hmm.
And I hope that any people who like listen to this, they allow for themselves to be like, oh man, yeah, I feel that. I feel that because it's like this really important part in our development, especially somebody's they subscribe to that like empath energy that's like you bypassed. More than likely you bypassed a big part of that and you did it with like either more than likely it was good intentions, right? Don't worry, I'll make you feel better. I'll make, and really it's like you didn't know how to be a human.
Yeah, I resonate so strongly with that. And I think you
Mhm.
and I have a lot of parallels in our
Mhm.
charts in opposite. I have gate 33 in my moon. So
Mm.
it's that
Okay.
that
Yeah.
that energy. But yeah, I mean the whole empath thing,
Mhm.
I like that has been such a what's the word I'm looking for? Not indicator, but a theme, I guess, for so much of my life. And then I realized how disempowering it really was to like myself and have to set boundaries and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, I guess like in wrapping it up, what advice or where in people's charts would you suggest that they look to, or what aspect or something to really like kind of come back and like ground in and be able to stand in all of this and to step into this energy that's coming?
I love to look at people's moons. So obviously we have the moon in our natal chart, and then your human design, that's the conscious moons that represents like essentially one of the driving forces. That may be a driving force that you are more conscious of. But when you check out what your design moon is, which is another driving force, but it is happening unconsciously, and it is also an energy that is attracting a lot of relationships to you. You are able to see how those two energies are either working together in harmony or where they are in some type of battle with each other. And that showcases a lot of your own internal struggle and it's like the battle that you have with life, especially in recognizing that the outer world is always a reflection of our inner world. Like so you said 33, and then what is your design moon?
24.
Okay. It's interesting, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the realization, rationalization, the
Mm-hmm.
returning energy.
Yeah.
So interesting to see how those would be. So both of those can be an energy of recluse, though, of like, okay, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
like back, let me think about that, let me think about or let me like think, and
Yeah.
then finally gets like ding, light bulb moment comes on. And then that's where the 33, like the sage energy can emerge, and you're like, young children gather around, I have a piece of let me teach you things, right? But until then, it might be like, yo, buzz off. I'm like in my cabin, I'm up here, I'm doing things. But it's both this energy. So those through that lens would work
Mm-hmm.
together really well on this. Like there's a breakthrough, there's a piece of wisdom, there's something that's always on the verge. So really you're making sure that you are setting up your life to facilitate those epiphanies, those aha moments, right? For you to really be that sage. But then I could see where those could be challenging together as they both can be this energy of like something in the future,
Mm-hmm.
waiting, a little bit of that energy. But for like silence would be a big one
Yeah.
for you to work with that, is really having that silence. For me, I have my design in 34, so it's the gate of power. So when I think about like, oh, power being inverted, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've recognized for me this plays out and there is this because I have that connecting with Neptune in 10 for me. So I have like the gate of like exploration and convictions, and that's actually my the channel of my authority, but it's completely unconscious. Completely
Mm-hmm.
unconscious. So sometimes like I'm blind to that, but I realize when I know something, I know it. And it's like I have these moments of conviction. It comes through these things of exploration and expansion. And but when I think about how my two moons work together, oh, battles. Is the battle. That's like the ultimate battle of my entire life is having this feeling of like I can see myself in everything and everyone and that can be really disempowering. And I've also realized though that then other people can sense this innate, I'll just say, is this like force, this power that I am oftentimes blind to. So when you have somebody that is this like super empath, has no concept of like where they end and somebody else begins, but somebody else who maybe they think even they have to be someone with bad intentions. It's just they're like, oh, I see a lot of power there. And
Mm.
then I drained really quickly, or I used to feel like I would get used a lot, but it was just because I didn't have boundaries and I didn't realize, oh, maybe instead of me like always being this like muse for somebody else, like give myself,
Mm.
give myself. And once I'm actually empowered, then I can help people. Then I can use this level of awareness that I have for the collective and cycles and experiences and actually use that to create a positive impact versus just be like, oh, let me be in the gutter with you and feel miserable with you because you're not helping. It doesn't help anybody. And
Yeah.
that's recognized when you're just like, let me be sad with you for you. And somebody's like, I talked to a lot of people that work in healthcare and they'd be like, that's like the worst thing you can ever do for somebody. When someone's like a
Mm.
nurse, you're sick, you have a nurse come in, you don't want the nurse to be like, oh my God, I just feel so bad for you. No, you want us to be like, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna do this, that, but in a loving
Hmm.
way. But to be in this space of actually helping, right? And even when we think about like what is compassion, sympathy, and empathy, like I think we've all been gaslit into thinking that empathy is this beautiful thing
Yeah.
because there's a misconception with it. And maybe the people that have been really pushing the conception are those that don't deal with the struggles of it, I think is
Mm.
as well.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Just over the holidays, we were playing this little like Christmas game, and one of the questions was, "What is your like unique gift?" or something like that, and everybody was supposed to answer it for you to like guess what your response was going to be, and everybody said empathy for me. That reminded me because then I was like, "Well, I would say more compassion," but it's taken a long time, right, to have that reframe, and the
Uh-huh.
fact that everybody jumps to that part of you where I feel like that's where I've gotten stuck a lot. So yeah, I really love that
How,
dynamic and
how
perspective.
have you reframed the empathy versus compassion?
I think it does have to come, or it has come a lot down to boundaries and like setting those, because otherwise, yeah, I'm just getting sucked into somebody else's everything. And then there's no distinguishing between me and them, right? It's like I'm taking everything on so that they'll feel okay, but then I'm not, So it's really been like I have to
Most
set
of the
those
time, they're not
boundaries.
either because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not actually able to create change for the.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot of enabling as well goes into that, but it's I I say that with like I'll say so much empathy, but with much compassion.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
people who truly, if deal with that, they it can. I just want people to know that like there is another side of that,
Mm.
right? And part of it is being there's so much wisdom. There's so much wisdom, but you have to be willing to go through that and
Yeah.
be willing to gradually become more comfortable with discomfort.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that I had to, at some point, accept my softness and sensitivities that I was so resisting before
Mhm.
to like let that move through me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I had this realization the other day. I was still kind of reflecting on it, but it was this idea that I'm simultaneously toughening up and softening up.
Yeah. Hmm. And they do work together.
And
Yeah.
like they have to because it's the idea they're going to be soft, you got to be tough. And but like,
Mm.
what does that even mean? Well, it's for the individual to come to their own realizations
Mm.
of. But I feel like with myself, that was thing is how do I balance those two? Because I realized a lot of there's things in the world that I feel I could help, but I can't help them if I am not empowered. I can't do anything to actually help them. Otherwise, I'm just a puddle too. We're all
Yeah.
just trying to make an impact.
Yeah. I saw
The
a reel
balance.
and that it said like just that. It was like the tougher she is, the softer she actually is. Like it's like behind that, there's really an incredible
Mhm.
softness that allows you to step into that. So yeah, I love
And then
that.
also for people that, also like deal with that empathy, it's you are worth you are worth protecting. You are worth protecting. And to be somebody who feels so much is a gift, even though it doesn't seem like a gift that you're like, I hope you kept the receipt because you got to return this crap. But it is a gift. But remember, your gifts are not just for you, they are for others. But in order for that gift to be worth anything, there's a certain level of optimization that has to happen with it. But then there's also a protection that is required with that. And since it is you that you deserve to be protected. And I see this as well with the empath, but also, a lot of Capricorns as well, is Capricorns have this, the cliche of Capricorns is they're all, cold, heartless, this. And I've, worked with a ton of Capricorns and realizing that there tends out to be a theme of feeling like they need to mature really quickly. So when somebody feels they have to mature really quickly, taking all the responsibility really quickly, it's like this whole level of emotional regulation is just bypassed. And before you know it, you're like an adult, but with the emotional processing of like a 2-year-old, right? Because you
Yeah.
didn't get to be a 2-year-old. So it's like
Yeah.
it's about just that awareness right there of like, yeah, things happened and you missed a step, but now you go back and you intentionally take that step and you're going to now be reconditioning yourself, but at a much, an older age with more wisdom. There's a lot of beauty in that. But
Mhm.
again, you gotta have the perspective and the dedication to owning that and
Yeah.
honing that within
Yeah.
yourself.
Mm. For a long time, I, for some reason, attracted so many Capricorn moons. And
Mhm.
at first, like, I'm a Leo moon. So at first, I was like, I don't get it. You're just shut off. You have no emotions. Like, leave me alone. You can't live in my world. But there is, like you said, underneath that, there is this part of them that I feel like they never really allowed themselves to like
Mhm.
experience or be with. And it really is such a beautiful part of that Capricorn energy. So, like, now I love Capricorns. But in the beginning, I was like, you don't get me. You'll never get me. It's just like going to be on opposite ends. But yeah.
Capricorn moons. I love Capricorn moons. There's this set. I can tell one now so quickly,
Mm.
and they are. And there's just something that's this like real grounded warmth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like this true warmth because I don't sense a lot of judgment either in them. It's kind of
Yeah.
just there's just this well, as I say, this grounded warmth.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like the grounded warmth because then you got to get like real close to the earth to like feel that warmth,
Yeah.
right? But it's there, but
Yeah.
it's everlasting.
Mm. And there's this practical, like nurturing that they do have,
Mhm.
where they do want to take care of you in a way that makes sense for them, that's practical and logical,
Mhm.
and, maybe like providing things for you that sometimes, from my like Leo dramatic, kind of experience, I've found hard to see for a
Mhm.
while. But then
Mhm.
when you see it, it's like, oh, that's actually a really beautiful way to
Mhm.
like show somebody.
And then they do that, and it's from a space of truth. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think around the idea of like true giving comes from overflow. If
Yeah.
somebody, people want there's this like martyr, there's a lot of these like collective beliefs and ideologies that is ascribed to of this like righteousness and martyr, having nothing but giving everything. We're like, that doesn't sound like a good time. Like, but instead it's like true giving comes from I am full, I am whole, I am complete. And because I am full and whole and complete, I have all of this to give. And it's the giving. It's like when somebody is giving and they like they mean it. It's like it's a difference because you're also not thinking this thing, oh my God, this is the last thing they have. It's like ooh, all these internal hangups happen. And you think about how wonderful this world could be if our people were giving from the space of wholeness, fullness, and being complete because you're empowered. And a lot of what I have always like worked in is this area of like kindness. And even kindness has been this like buzzword that I've had to really reframe what that truly is so that it could accommodate this feeling of not having to, okay, I will like nice girl, right? I will be kind and good and nice at all costs, no matter if I feel, it's like that, like whatever you think. I get into the energy and I can immediately reconnect to this part of myself that felt like it required this level of endurance just to survive. And they're like, that is not living. That is not being self-actualized. That is not expanding. That is just like caving to the pressures of the world. And when we have empowered people using their strengths to create impact, I believe things like kindness is just the absolute most natural byproduct of the world. You don't even need to put a focus on it. You don't need to have these like kindness campaigns and kindness initiatives because it is just a natural byproduct of empowered people living in such a way that they feel inspired and aligned with their truth and their gifts.
I love that. It makes me think about Gary Vaynerchuk. You know who he
Mm.
is? Yeah, he's just
Mhm.
so like in
Mhm.
that, and it's his whole
Yeah.
thing is kindness and empathy and
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
just being a good
Yeah.
person.
But it's like
It's
it can
like,
be like the most natural thing in the world. Like
yeah,
I think humans are, I don't even think, I know humans are innately so good. So
Hmm.
good, so good. But we all go through experiences where, we have to develop certain traits and this and that, and a personality gets formed, and then the ego is constantly trying to protect the personality from the personality is not a real thing. And then all this stuff happens, and it's just this like, it's just this
Yeah.
like, collective like freak out.
Mm. Yeah.
But the other, just the inverse of that is this really beautiful energy of just like, I guess I would say it's alignment. If people
Hmm.
are in a space of alignment, I think the way to get in there is it's kind of allowing for this transition to happen within our own individual life so that then it can really like mutate the collective is it's a combination of radical self-love and radical responsibility, right? So
Hmm.
like who would you be if you didn't blame anyone for anything, right? You took anything that happened and you thought like, okay, how can I learn from this? Or how can I be guided by this? And even if it's like somebody did something to you and you still are able to think, okay, well, maybe they're going through something, but what do I need to do so that I'm fine regardless, right? And that's even a big component of you can call it sovereign, like being a sovereign individual. And this like connecting back to what we're saying about technology and always being a reflection of ourselves, it's a big component of that is even when we're looking at things like decentralization coming in and big part of decentralization deals with transparency, but ownership and the idea of what do you have to do so that you are great no matter what, right? And where is your single point of failure? If everything in your life is fine, except for this one thing that happens, that's a massive like vulnerability that you have. So what do you have to do so that you're fine regardless. So getting back to that situation, say it's like somebody cut you off and you're running late, so now you think this person's terrible and it's da 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 da. But in reality, it's okay. One, maybe that person is going through something, or two, maybe that person, they didn't even see you. But third one is, well, you're stressed because you're running late, so you should probably leave earlier next time, right? If you actually think about it, because you can't control
Hmm.
that person, what they're going through with da 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 da. But if you do something that's really important to you, what do you got to do so that like you're straight no matter what, that you're good to go? And
Yeah.
that's getting back into if we all were to lead our lives that way of what do you got to do so that like you're great no matter what, it really that eliminates a lot of the things that come up that throw us off course.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much. This has been so good. And for the listeners, like, I mean, you offered so many powerful questions here. So if they need to go back and re-listen and write them down, like I hope they go and like and journal around them because they're really powerful reflection questions. How can everyone find you and how can they work with you?
So ashleymosaic.com. It's Ashley Mosaic on all the socials as well. So I work with individuals and one-on-one coaching, but then I also have different workshops that I will do within corporations and
Mm,
to help really optimize as we're optimizing the technology, also optimizing the humans is a really big part of the work the work that I do. And I love that now I'm doing it with for small businesses
mm,
and a lot of fun.
yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.